Because MJ and his family got to hear this shit right here. And you shouldn't have to do that to MJ to try to build up LeBron. LeBron James is laughing about MJ not having work ethic and he went to go play baseball. LeBron not going to correct it and say what really happened. He's just going to let Kevin Durant say something that's stupid. Jeff Teague, he said something outlandish. And I'm like, I was just thinking in my head, boy, if Kobe Bryant was here, it's amazing how these guys can talk the way they're talking now. Because it don't make sense. LeBron's mind the game makes no sense whatsoever. MJ and his family got to hear this shit right here. And you shouldn't have to do that to MJ to try to build up LeBron. And I think that's kind of whack that, Kevin Durant said he's a student of the game. But how did you not know this information to say what you just said?
LeBron and KD really thought this was funny, and that's where the problem starts. They sat back, relaxed, wine in hand, acting like Michael Jordan's darkest chapter was just another punchline to toss around for laughs. What they treated like casual banter hit way deeper than they realized, and once Larry Bird caught wind of it, the silence didn't last anymore. This wasn't just jokes flying around for content. LeBron James and Kevin Durant were openly clowning one of the most sensitive moments in Michael Jordan's entire career. Sitting in what looked like a half-finished warehouse, sipping wine, laughing like they were rewriting hoops history from a couch, not a court. The tone alone felt slick, dismissive, and straight-up disrespectful to anyone who actually lived through that era. And make no mistake, this wasn't subtle. The jokes weren't about stats or play style. They were about why Jordan walked away at the top, and they framed it like he just quit because he felt like it. That alone sent a loud message to every old-school fan watching, especially those who understand what the 90s game was really built on. Things really blew up during a July 2025 episode of their podcast, Mind the Game. While talking about longevity, Durant casually dropped a line about going to play baseball, clearly referencing Jordan's 1993 exit. He said it with a smirk, and LeBron didn't miss a beat, laughing right alongside him. The room energy said everything even before the internet did. Now here's the part people defending them love to skip. It wasn't just what was said, it was how it landed. That laugh wasn't innocent. The implication was loud and clear to anyone paying attention. They were framing Jordan's decision as a soft move, a dodge, like he walked away instead of carrying the league on his back after 3 straight titles with the Chicago Bulls. But that's where the story flips from disrespectful to straight up crossing a line. Jordan didn't step away because he lost hunger. He didn't fold under pressure. In 1993, he was dealing with a devastating personal loss that shook his entire world. His father, James Jordan Sr., was taken from him suddenly that summer, and the weight of that moment changed everything. Basketball wasn't just a game to Jordan anymore. It became tied to grief, exhaustion, and a spotlight he couldn't escape. Stepping away wasn't weakness, it was survival. On top of that, he chose to honor a lifelong bond he shared with his father through baseball, a dream they talked about long before championships and fame entered the picture. And this is exactly why Larry Bird stepping in mattered. Larry Bird isn't a guy who jumps into debates for clicks. When someone like him speaks, it's because a line has been crossed. He represents an era that played through pain, pressure, and silence without turning someone else's trauma into content. That's why this moment hit so hard across the basketball world. This wasn't just a podcast clip. It was a reminder of how easily legends get reduced when history is filtered through laughs instead of respect. Let's get one thing straight right now. Michael Jordan didn't quit anything, not then, not ever. In 1994, he stepped onto a minor league baseball field with the Birmingham Barons, not because he lacked drive, but because he was dealing with the most painful chapter of his life. He stepped away from the NBA to process a devastating family loss, to breathe, to reset, and to honor a promise that mattered more than rings at that moment.
Knowing that me and Magic was going to be linked from '79 through our pro careers, and I have to admit, I worked tirelessly every day, practicing for one reason: try to beat them damn Lakers. We got to the top of the tunnel. We had to wait because the traffic was out there and the fans were throwing stuff at us. And I was very quiet and very humble that day, and I was looking out the window, and I happened to see Irvin walking across the parking lot to his car. Of course, he had a number of people around him, and I just watched him. I could see the pain on his face, the look in his eyes that he was a beaten man that day. So if my thoughts in my head, my other teammates were talking, doing their own thing, I was just watching him, I said, suffer, baby, suffer.
And what happened next speaks louder than any podcast joke ever could. In 1995, Michael Jordan came back to the league and absolutely steamrolled it. 3 more championships, another three-peat, and total domination like the game hadn't even moved on without him. That's not quitting, that's regrouping and coming back even more ruthless. So when Kevin Durant sat there with a wine glass in his hand, casually joking about Jordan going to play baseball, this wasn't harmless humor. That comment didn't just brush against Jordan's work ethic, it flattened the reality of what that period meant. It reduced one of the most painful moments in basketball history into a cheap punchline for a longevity debate. And then there's LeBron James. He didn't step in. He didn't add context. He didn't slow it down and say, hold up, that wasn't like that. He just laughed. No correction, no respect, no acknowledgement of the weight behind that decision, just a laugh and move on like it was nothing. Now, if you're a fan of either guy, I already know the defense. It's being blown out of proportion. It was just jokes. People are too sensitive. But let's flip it for 1 second. Would you laugh if someone cracked jokes about the worst moment of your life? Would you sit there smiling if someone reduced your family's darkest hour to a debate point for internet clout? That clip exploded online almost instantly, and the reaction was fierce for a reason. Former players weren't having it. The calls came fast, loud, and unforgiving. Kwame Brown went nuclear, unloading on both superstars and calling the remarks flat out ignorant. He reminded everyone of something today's era keeps trying to erase. Jordan already completed a three-peat before stepping away. His time in baseball wasn't escapism. It was tribute, discipline, and respect for something bigger than basketball. And unlike Durant and LeBron, Jordan didn't solve adversity by bouncing between teams when things got uncomfortable. LeBron's platform has increasingly felt like an effort to boost his era by tearing down the one before it, pulling voices together to downplay the 1990s, acting like those players were one-dimensional, slow, or lacking skill. That's laughable to anyone who actually watched. Those guys played both ends of the floor every night. Defense wasn't optional, it was survival. When you pour that much energy into guarding elite scorers, your offense takes a hit, and modern fans don't get that. The 90s weren't about spacing and vibes, they were about collisions, hand-checking, and physical punishment on every drive. You couldn't breathe near the rim without getting hit. And yet the legends of that era didn't just survive it, they owned it. Championships, MVPs, dynasties, all while playing elite defense and carrying offenses without load management. But according to LeBron and Durant's tone, those guys just didn't last long enough. They didn't work hard enough. They gave up and went to play baseball. The disrespect is unreal. And just when it felt like the backlash couldn't get any bigger, something else happened. Something that sent shockwaves through the entire basketball world. Larry Bird, the Boston Celtics icon and Jordan's fiercest rival, reportedly snapped behind the scenes over those comments. When someone like Bird breaks his silence, you know the line wasn't just crossed, it was obliterated.
Larry made me have sleepless nights. I was scared to death that I knew he could beat me.
And do you now, in your heart, believe you're the better player?
I've always said that I go by success, and he's won more championships, so I give him the nod.
No, I just think that, we play in different eras. He's an unbelievable player. Yeah, he's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. I know it's a natural tendency to compare eras to eras, and it's going to continue to happen. I'm a fan of his. I love watching him play.
What I'm saying to you is that while you were learning how to win, would Jordan have ever let you learn? See, here's what you have to understand. Michael Jordan is 6-0 in NBA Finals Series. MVP of every single NBA Finals Series.
That he won. Incredible.
Who never allowed the series to get to Game 7. Not one time. Not one time.
Now, if you know anything about Larry Bird, you know this man does not talk unless it actually matters. He's 68 years old, mostly out of the spotlight, and lives a quiet life as a consultant with the Indiana Pacers. He's never been interested in chasing headlines or jumping into modern NBA drama just for noise. Bird has always kept his distance from today's debates, and that's what makes this moment hit so hard. His last real public reflections came years ago, when he spoke calmly about his rivalry with Magic Johnson. He's even praised LeBron James in the past for his all-around skill, while still making it clear that Michael Jordan is the greatest in his eyes. So when a man like Bird breaks his silence, the basketball world leans in. According to people close to him, Bird reportedly called the podcast moment one of the most disrespectful things he's heard in modern basketball talk. He emphasized that Jordan's career doesn't need defending. It already speaks louder than anything Kevin Durant or LeBron could ever say on a microphone. And here's where Bird's words carry extra weight. This isn't just opinion, it's lived experience. Bird played 13 brutal seasons from 1979 to 1992 while dealing with constant back pain and injuries that never really healed. 3 championships, 3 MVPs, and a career built on toughness, sacrifice, and showing up no matter how bad it hurt. He didn't sit games for load management. He didn't chase easy paths or jump teams to stack the deck. He showed up every single night and competed until his body physically couldn't keep up anymore. That's the lens he's looking through when he hears Jordan's short break being turned into a joke. Because Jordan didn't step away casually. That break came after the loss of his father during a moment that shook his entire world. To see that chapter laughed at on a podcast was something Bird reportedly couldn't ignore anymore. And honestly, neither could anyone else who actually played in that era. This isn't just about one clip going viral. This is about a generational divide that's been simmering for years and finally boiled over. To understand why Bird's response matters so much, you need to understand how different those generations really are. This isn't nostalgia, it's reality. The Bird, Magic, Jordan era was built on competition that bordered on obsession. Bird once talked about the first time he saw Magic play, and what followed wasn't jealousy or excuses. He went home and worked harder. He didn't complain about the competition. He didn't try to join Magic to make things easier. He trained relentlessly with one goal in mind. Larry Bird woke up every single day thinking, I need to beat Magic Johnson and the Lakers, not, how do I team up with them? That mindset defined the era. Their rivalry started in the 1979 NCAA championship, which became the most watched college basketball game in history with over 40 million viewers. From that moment on, Bird and Magic pushed each other to heights neither could have reached alone. That competition didn't just make them legends, it saved the NBA itself. The league in the 1970s was struggling badly. Attendance was down, finances were shaky, and several teams nearly disappeared. When Bird and Magic entered the league alongside the leadership of NBA Commissioner David Stern, everything changed.
You know, those are some incredible stats. Those are some incredible stats. I'm never going to say anything bad about LeBron, I told you. I think he's the 3rd best player I've ever seen play after Michael and Kobe. It's just different eras. I love LeBron. I'm not going to say anything bad about him.
But then Barkley dropped the real truth bomb.
He didn't go to college for 3 years. You have to factor that in also. He had a 3-year head start on Michael. Okay, since you want me to. So, I'm going to just give a couple of things about, if he wanted to do it fair, he would say, well, how many games did Michael Jordan play compared to LeBron? And actually, if you look at the numbers, Michael actually had 5,000 more points in his career, same number of games. 5,000, which is 2.5 NBA seasons.
Finals ratings exploded throughout the 1980s. Almost every finals featured one of their teams. They turned the NBA into must-watch television through pure rivalry and intensity. And here's the part modern players seem to miss. Bird and Magic genuinely wanted to destroy each other on the court. Magic himself has said today's players don't hate each other the same way, and that intensity is what built the league. Then came Jordan, who took that fire and turned it into something even more ruthless. When Jordan was asked about LeBron, notice the difference. He was respectful, measured, and gracious. He praised LeBron's talent and acknowledged how hard it is to compare eras. He didn't mock career choices, he didn't laugh at losses, he showed respect. And what did LeBron and Durant do in return? They sat in a warehouse, wine glasses clinking, and laughed about the most painful chapter of Jordan's life. That's why this moment hit such a nerve. Jordan went to 6 NBA Finals, won every one of them, earned Finals MVP every single time, and never let a series reach Game 7. That's not mythology, that's history. And when legends like Larry Bird feel compelled to speak up, it's because something bigger than trash talk just happened. Michael Jordan built everything with the Chicago Bulls. No shortcuts, no super team hopping, no escape routes. Early on, he kept running into a brick wall called the Pistons. Series after series ended in frustration. And when the pressure got unbearable, Jordan didn't run, he evolved. He trained harder, sharpened every weakness, and came back stronger until that wall finally cracked. That's the part people love to ignore. Jordan didn't bail when things got ugly. He didn't look for help elsewhere. He stayed put and leveled up again and again. Now stack that against LeBron James. Yes, the stats are big. Yes, the box scores look shiny, but a 4-6 finals record comes with nights where the numbers were there, yet the moment slipped away. Great performances, but not always great endings. And then there's Kevin Durant. His 2 championships came with the Golden State Warriors, a squad that already won 73 games before he ever arrived. A team that was already the most dominant regular season machine the league had ever seen. Those are the guys cracking jokes about Jordan's work ethic. And when it comes to calling things out bluntly, Charles Barkley never tiptoes. When asked directly about this whole debate, Barkley didn't sugarcoat a single word. He dropped a stat that stopped the conversation cold. In the same number of games played, Michael Jordan scored over 5,000 more points than LeBron James. Let that sink in. That's basically 2.5 extra NBA seasons worth of scoring in the exact same amount of time. That's not opinion, that's math. And that leads to the question that keeps haunting this entire debate. When everything is on the line, one game, no excuses, who do you trust to deliver? Anyone who watched both men at their peak already knows the answer. And here's where things get even more uncomfortable. LeBron himself has openly admitted he wanted to be like Mike. He said having his name mentioned next to Jordan feels unreal. He's acknowledged the standard Jordan set. So how do you square that with sitting on your own podcast laughing while Kevin Durant mocks the most painful chapter of Jordan's career? The contradiction is wild. The hypocrisy is loud. This isn't just backlash anymore, it's a reckoning. The basketball world is finally pushing back against the casual disrespect being thrown at its greatest icons. And at the center of that pushback is Larry Bird.
I did pretty much everything that MJ did when I was a kid. I shot fadeaways before I should have. I wore a leg sleeve on my leg and folded it down so you saw the red part. For no reason. I wore black and red shoes with white socks. I wore short shorts so you could see my undershorts underneath. But I did everything Mike did, man. I wanted to be Mike. And so for my name to come up in any discussion with Michael Jordan or Kareem and all these great guys that's paved the way for myself and Tristan and Kev and Swish, it's just a wow factor. I don't really have nothing to say.
Bird reportedly described the podcast comments as deeply disrespectful, and coming from him, that matters. This is a man who played his entire career through relentless back pain and injuries. He embodied toughness when toughness was non-negotiable. When Bird talks about sacrifice, it's not theory. His career ended early because he physically gave everything to the game. There was no load management era to soften the grind, but Bird's reaction goes even deeper than basketball. He understands adversity on a personal level. Long before the NBA spotlight, he dealt with serious family hardship that shaped his mindset and fueled his competitiveness. That perspective doesn't leave you. So when he sees Kevin Durant laughing about how Michael Jordan handled a deeply personal loss, Bird isn't just defending a peer. He's defending the reality that players carry heavy burdens far beyond the court. And while all this is happening, LeBron's own game has had question marks that never fully disappeared. His mid-range consistency, his balance pulling up to the right, these have followed him for decades. Even after 20-plus years, some fundamentals were never completely mastered. Now compare that to Michael Jordan. He entered the league as an explosive athlete and left it as the most complete offensive player the sport has ever seen. Post-game, mid-range precision, elite defense, footwork, timing, instincts. He added layers until there were no gaps left. And yes, Kevin Durant is one of the most efficient scorers ever. Even LeBron has admitted that on his own show, which makes this whole thing even stranger. If Durant is truly a student of the game, if he prides himself on understanding history and nuance, how did he miss the full context behind Jordan's break? How did something that serious turn into a laugh line? That question is hanging over everything right now, and it's not going away anytime soon. How did one of the most painful chapters in sports history get reduced to a joke? That's the question people can't stop asking right now. Because to a lot of former players, this wasn't trash talk. It was a line cross that shouldn't have been touched. And no, the calls for accountability aren't coming from random fans hiding behind keyboards. They're coming from players who competed at the highest level, players who understand exactly what Michael Jordan went through, and players who are genuinely disturbed by how casually his legacy was treated. Now, let's be clear and fair for a moment. The claims about Larry Bird reacting strongly come from people described as close to him, insiders, and members of his circle. There's no public video clip, no audio recording, no official press quote floating around. Bird is famously quiet, stoic, and rarely inserts himself into modern GOAT debates. Mainstream outlets like ESPN, NBA.com, and Sports Illustrated haven't published direct confirmation of Bird speaking publicly on this moment. That matters, and it deserves to be said out loud. But here's the part that doesn't change at all. Whether Bird said every reported word or not, the sentiment behind them is absolutely real. The basketball world, former players, analysts, and fans who lived through the 1980s and 1990s are exhausted by the constant downplaying of that era. This frustration didn't start with one podcast clip. It's been building for years. There's also growing discomfort around LeBron James and the way his career is discussed versus how others are judged. Questions have followed him for over a decade, from old performance-related rumors that never fully disappeared, to criticism around when he chooses to speak up publicly and when he stays silent because of business interests.
I think this was the stupidest shit, but you got the right to say whatever you want to say. I just think he should have did a little more research, and I think that was distasteful because now MJ and his family. I think Kevin Durant should apologize for this. To be honest with you, this ain't gonna age well if it ever comes out that Chael Sonnen was telling the truth about LeBron allegedly taking EPOs and testosterone. This is not going to age well, LeBron. If I was you, I'd be very careful with it lingering out there that you had some help to play this long. And then now you start saying things like that. Carmelo Anthony should have just worked a little harder. Instead of, because the league pushed me as this thing called a king, Ricky Davis had to leave Cleveland. Because it was Ricky Davis' team. Ricky Davis got to go because he don't believe in this king shit. And then not only Ricky Davis, Darius Miles, all these guys now, because you guys don't do what we need you to do.
We are LeBron. Well, I mean, that's a tough one. I would say Kevin Durant, in terms of dominance of the game of basketball at this stage, is LeBron. Championship-wise, Kobe Bryant.
Even Jordan himself, when asked to choose between Kobe and LeBron, found a way to be diplomatic. But notice what he said about championships. Kobe, not LeBron. Because when it comes to winning, when it comes to delivering, when it matters most, there's a hierarchy. And LeBron James, for all his statistical accumulation, has never reached the top of that high.
That contrast hasn't gone unnoticed by longtime fans, especially when LeBron questions other players' durability and longevity, while whispers about how his own longevity was achieved continue to circulate in basketball circles. But the sharpest criticism cuts deeper than rumors or politics. It's about what LeBron and Kevin Durant actually represent compared to the players they're laughing at. LeBron changed teams multiple times, building alliances with elite stars like Dwyane Wade, Chris Bosh, Kyrie Irving, and Anthony Davis. Each move was strategic, calculated, and designed to tilt the odds. Durant took it even further. He joined a Golden State Warriors squad that had already won 73 games and a championship without him. A move that many players and fans still view as the softest super team decision the league has ever seen. And these are the men sitting back, wine glasses clinking, judging Michael Jordan's work ethic. The entire narrative around LeBron's career has been carefully crafted. The King label came early. The comparisons to Jordan started before he'd won anything meaningful. Teammates who didn't fit the story were shipped out and replaced. This isn't the story of a player who overcame every obstacle alone. It's the story of a player whose obstacles were often removed before they became walls. And now that same player is laughing on a podcast at the one man who never needed any of that. The one man who faced every challenge head on. The one man who never lost a finals series. The one man whose legacy doesn't need protection because it stands on its own. That's why this moment hits so hard. Not because fans are sensitive, but because respect matters. And once respect is gone, no amount of stats, podcasts, or narratives can replace it. Here's the part that shuts down the argument every single time. In a 2024 to 2025 player poll, Michael Jordan edged out LeBron James as the GOAT, 45.9% to 42.1%, with Kobe Bryant sitting at 9.8%. Yes, the gap has narrowed since 2019, when Jordan held a massive lead, mostly because younger voters obsess over longevity. But here's the detail that actually matters. Among players who competed against both men, the verdict is still clear. When people who shared the floor, felt the pressure, and lived those moments speak, Jordan remains the standard. That's not nostalgia, that's experience. Even Jordan himself, when asked to choose between Kobe and LeBron, handled it with class. He didn't throw shots, he didn't disrespect anyone, but pay attention to what he emphasized: championships, winning when it matters most. And in that conversation, he pointed to Kobe, not LeBron. Because when the lights are brightest, there's a hierarchy whether people like it or not. And for all of LeBron's historic stat totals, records, and longevity milestones, he's never fully reached the top of that hierarchy. Numbers alone don't crown kings. Jordan once described his competitive drive as a curse that Kobe Bryant also carried, a curse that forced them to obsess, to suffer, to sacrifice, and to dominate. That's the difference. That edge didn't switch off when the cameras stopped rolling. So when Jordan looks at the modern game, at players laughing, sipping wine in warehouses, mocking legends instead of studying them, he sees something completely different. Not hunger, not obsession, not respect. So what's the verdict? What should actually happen next? It's simple. Kevin Durant owes Michael Jordan an apology. Not for having an opinion about longevity, not for liking a different era of basketball, but for turning the most painful chapter of Jordan's life into a joke without understanding or caring about the context. And LeBron James owes Jordan an apology too, for sitting there and laughing, for not stepping in, for not adding context, for allowing his platform to be used to disrespect the very man he once said he idolized growing up. And the basketball world owes something even bigger. It owes the legends who built this game a baseline level of respect, because this sport didn't magically become glamorous overnight. The comfort, the money, the global spotlight, all of it was earned by players who took hits, played through pain, and carried the league when it wasn't cool or profitable. Basketball history didn't start in 2003. Larry Bird understands that. Magic Johnson understands that. Michael Jordan understands that. It's time for LeBron James and Kevin Durant to understand it too. Now, if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.